So, greetings. Welcome to Septum Sen versus the World. I'm Septum Sen, and this is Kotobuki Jake.
Hi.
All of us sitting in the dark here wish you the best on this nice week. This has been an interesting week so far. I managed to finally get a hold of, watch DuckTales. It's on YouTube. I don't know if you saw the first episode of the new series.
There's a new series?
Yes, there is a new series. It has been done in a sort of comic booky style.
Huh.
Which,
I did not know that.
I am going to also make sure that I turn the sound off on my phone. But, media. And the reason why DuckTales has been... there it goes. DuckTales, I was debating whether to watch it or not. A friend of ours actually had said, no, you need to watch it. But then I look at XD and I think, that's the channel with Star vs. Force of Evil, and it just reminds me that I'm still waiting for that to come back on in November. But it really was an interesting reimagining of the source material. Don't expect the old, but also expect a lot of tributes to the old. For me, the most jarring change was the Huey, Dewey, and Louie voices. I mean, they got some Saturday Night Live people to do their voices. I can't remember which ones. And they're done fairly well, and they differentiate them pretty well. I mean, they actually are their personalities are much more distinct.
So like Tracy Morgan, Chris Kattan, and Will Ferrell.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast the other day of... God, what's the guy who was in Fifth Element? The guy who played Roddy... the annoying guy.
Chris Tucker?
Chris Tucker. I was
Jesus.
I was listening to Rage Select's podcast, and they were talking about... what if we could get a total HD remodel of Metal Gear Solid, but Solid Snake was voiced by Chris Tucker? And I'm like, ugh. But other than getting used to that and a couple of minor changes, the biggest thing, of course, was the little girl duck, Webby. They made her much more adventurous. I think much more suited to this time of, women being equally as capable as protagonists as men, so we want to have an equally adventurous female character in the series.
So if we're keeping up with the times, does Scrooge now have a bad toupee and an orange spray-on tan?
Well, Scrooge is actually about the same as he's always been. The same with Donald Duck.
Same Scottish brogue?
Same basic character. I mean, the first enemy they
fight is... You
fight
can't really
is...
mess with Donald, or you will get people up in arms.
I mean, the very first one was Flintheart
Put some pants on.
Glomgold, or whatever was his first villain that he fought, and they did a full hour special. It was worth watching. If you get the chance, checking it out on YouTube. It's pretty simple. I'll put a link below to it. XD put that full thing on there, and it was fun. It was a fun thing. I enjoyed most of it. And of course, The Tick has also got its first episode out for preview. I have not watched that yet, but I plan on remedying that tonight. It's free for those people who are Prime subscribers.
And of course, those two series are very much a blast from the past for our generation, especially DuckTales. I mean, I grew up on now. And The Tick I didn't get into as much when I was younger, but I've enjoyed it as I've gotten older. And I really hate that the Patrick Warburton series with Batman only lasted 8 episodes. It would have been great.
I'm very curious how this one works. I mean, Amazon does some good, has done some good properties.
Yeah, they have.
So, I mean, Alpha House, Man on High Castles, the two that I think of right off the bat when I got there. And from what I've seen of both of those, are excellent series.
Yeah.
So, speaking of releases this week, we'll go ahead and get into what this is supposed to be about. I just thought I would throw out some news, that at least what I've heard in there. I mean, have you heard anything on the grapevine that's interesting?
As far as releases and such?
Yeah, just not like these releases necessarily, but...
I can't say that anything jumps out immediately. No. Not really.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I think you already mentioned before the upcoming release of Your Name. That was exciting to finally confirm that. Yeah,
I am looking forward to that. I'll probably have to watch your copy, but I will be watching a copy somewhere. I'll sneak in and grab it. And,
yeah, I'm honestly debating getting the limited edition, but it's hard to justify $50-$60 for a movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's just such an awesome movie. And this is the thing. Funimation is stating that the limited release will come with a 2-disc Radwimps soundtrack, which they're not doing with the standard. And considering that Radwimps did the score for this movie, and apparently one of the songs was like the song in Japan for the most of last year, it apparently was their version of Let It Go.
I'm hoping.
So it's like, you might need to have that soundtrack.
Do we know if that song will officially be on the disc? I mean, I've had some releases like when Puella Madoka Magica came out, they did not put the themes on their soundtrack discs.
Well, they specifically state that it's the soundtrack by Radwimps. And considering that they contributed, I think it was 5, maybe 4 or 5 songs to the movie, I kind of doubt that it wouldn't. But it is worth checking into.
I will have to check it out and see, definitely. And we'll know more as it comes closer to the release. I mean, it's like out in November, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got a little bit of time.
Same day as Squirrel Girl, I think.
So,
it'll be fun.
We'll go ahead and get started. If you don't mind, I will throw out the first one.
Okay.
Mainly because this one is near and dear to my heart. You'll probably see this in the pickup sometime in the near future. As a matter of fact, you will see a number of these. Just like one of last week's mentions is going to be in the pickups today. Nutcracker Fantasy. So, from what I recall, I've talked with you about this before. But you remember all of those old things, like the one with Santa Claus talking about children sitting in his lap to get toys, or the famous Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, creepy puppet show kids films. This one was also done in the same style and was released around that same time period, but never got that full home video release like the rest of them did.
Well, I don't think it had the same production company behind it, so that might have been part of the reason. But
maybe. It is the redheaded stepchild, to be sure. And I think the main reason is it just was so frightening to most of the children involved.
Just listen to the title, Nutcracker Fantasy. It just doesn't sound like a children's movie.
I remember as a child, I used to actually be genuinely frightened of this film. And I was a sheltered child. Don't get me wrong. But looking at this, I mean, there's this thing at the beginning talking about if little children are caught out of bed beyond bedtime, this guy's going to capture you and spirit you away and all this creepy stuff. And it follows along that same creepy way throughout the entirety of it. It has the 2-headed rat monster and a couple other things that I remember as a child, and I remember scaring the heck out of me watching it. So I really am looking forward to getting this as another in that collection of creepy puppet Christmas themed shows or TV movies that came back in those days. Like I say, I don't know if you know much about this particular title.
I can't say that I really do. I never did see that one. I never saw most of those. The Rankin Bass Rudolph one, I grew up with that one. But most of the others, like that Santa Claus one, I never saw that until you showed it to me.
That was also Rankin Bass, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, oh my God. If you watch that for the first time as an adult, you're going to watch that and go, they made this for kids?
Yeah, they kind of screwed up most of our generation's childhoods. But that one is there, and so is the next one. But after you on this one,
okay.
And by the way, Eastern Star is releasing this one, just like with this next title. There's a lot of Eastern Stars.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they've got a few. This is like a major release week for them for some reason, and it's really random stuff. We got this one that isn't even anime, really, not to my knowledge. But then this one, I guess, is an anime. It's, but it was one that apparently did get an American release, and it's dubbed by, what was it, Margot Kidder? Was that?
I don't remember the dub.
I don't remember. I think that's who it was. But it's called The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It's an animated series about the Wizard of Oz. That was, 50-odd episodes?
It was a decent number.
I've never seen this show. I definitely am familiar with the old classic movie. But I'm curious. The art style, hey Fu. The art style, I can't say that I'm blown away by. It's very, very simplistic art style, but it might be worth a watch. I mean, Wizard of Oz is a great story, so it might be worth checking out some point. And certainly for those of you who did see it back in the day, here's your chance to pick it up. So,
I mean, one of the things that was interesting back in the day is HBO licensed a whole bunch of anime back in the 80s. And just kids anime. And they showed those kids anime on the air during their family times. And Wizard of Oz was one of those. I used to actually watch it every morning after my father had gotten the Dish and HBO. That was his big thing. And it was actually one of those that drew me in a lot as a kid. It has a significant number of episodes and multiple movies. They've been released before, but this is the first time it's all been released kind of grouped together. I don't know if the movies are in it. I know all the episodes are.
And a pretty affordable price point.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it's 50-some episodes, but what is it, $30 they're asking?
Yeah, it's not that bad.
So,
and it's definitely worth it if you want something for children to watch or something from those nostalgic days. There was another one that they had seen. There was a movie called Jack and the Beanstalk. I'm really hoping that will get a re-release. There is a DVD release, and if you find it in a thrift store someplace, you pick it up because it's worth a bloody fortune right now because it's very out of print. But it's very much worth it. And if you don't know of it and you haven't seen it, you should check out that Nostalgia Critic episode that is dedicated to it. I can't guarantee you that I'll have that in there, but I'll see if I can link to it. It really is worth looking at. It is a creepy, strange series. Actually, show. And speaking,
funny how many of these are like that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of strange, maybe not creepy, but definitely strange. Our next release is Marmalade Boy, Part 1, which is another Eastern Star. The first 38 episodes, and I have no clue how many episodes Marmalade Boy was in. I just know that the original release here in America was 4 parts. The first 2 are pretty common, but those last 2 are really hard to get a hold of. Matter of fact, you can probably find those first 2 at most places. I mean, Second and Charles has 2 copies of each of those first 2 parts. And from what I've read, it's about this group of parents that have decided to do wife swapping and move in together in some weird swinging community, and the main parent's child, she's being ogled by the other parent's child, which is probably a very terrible description of the series, but I've never seen it. I've just heard it by reputation.
It's a little different than what I'd read.
Reputation I'd gotten was ecchi, but that's just that's what I read off of Right Stuff's thing, was some sort of weird thing like that. And but I've never seen it, so I could be totally off base. I mean, if their description is wrong, then I'm wrong.
I think the basics, from what you described, the basics are probably not totally off. The reputation, I think, is a little different, because I've been under the impression that this is a fondly remembered series by a lot of shoujo fans. And it is apparently very much a shoujo series, so if it's ecchi, it's probably not overboard the way male-oriented series tend to go overboard.
There was one, but I'm trying to think. There is a series that was that I'm thinking of that reminds me of what I've heard of that one, but I can't think of it. I do have that one, which makes even.
I do know the art style of this series is very much a classical shoujo look, and it is based. Also, the manga is pretty popular, and I think remains pretty popular. It's one that I've been curious about, if only because the title's so weird. It looks very interesting. Like you said, it's kind of a lengthy show. I need to double check. I didn't get to look it up. I didn't really get to look up A&N's view of any of these because someone hacked the site and it's down right now.
Yeah, well, you can do it at .cc and you can get it up there.
The which?
Just do Anime News Network .cc instead of .com, and that's where they've been setting up shop recently.
Okay, I had heard that they were doing something along those lines, but I kind of figured for the time being I'd let it play itself out. But the point is, you can't go to the regular website.
Yeah,
it's not going to work. But yeah, it'll be worth looking at one of these days. I haven't really done enough with Eastern Star to comment too much on their releases, other than they're pretty good, affordable, basic releases. And they are doing a good job of picking up a lot of these older ones that other people are kind of forgetting. So I keep holding out the hope that they'll pick up maybe Cheeky Angel, which still needs American release or something like that.
Actually, I'm hoping for a better one to get that. I'd like to see like Funimation get it.
I'm not holding my breath on that.
Or maybe Viz, but I don't think Viz would.
Viz will be too pricey.
Viz is about the same as Funimation. It's just in the long run.
They always split things up. Funimation often does, but Viz always does.
But they do combine it eventually. And just like Viz, I mean, some Funimation. I mean, it's just like with Funimation and Gosek. I mean, they're putting that in 2 parts, and it angers me.
Actually, Viz released the manga of Cheeky Angel, so it does make sense that they would release. But anyway, they need to get their act together and re-release Mermaid Scar.
They should just do an entire
Runic World one-shot collection.
Because
that would be
that's
awesome.
A part of that, yeah.
Anyway,
your turn.
We're doing a lot of rambling on this set. Okay, the next one is that the full title?
Nightwalker.
Isn't it? Is Vampire Detective part of the title, or is it
that's just that was just my notes.
Because I thought it had a longer title. Anyway, Nightwalker may have Vampire Detective. It's about a vampire detective. We know that much. And it's another Eastern Star release. It's a series that I honestly am not positive I'd ever heard of before. It definitely is not one that made an impression if I did. It looks somewhat interesting. I might get to it one of these days, but that's really all I have to say on that one.
I mean, I read it's vampires doing something with detective work and against demons, and then being chased by other vampires, and then vampire hunters, and all of those things that make it sound confusing. And in a 12-episode series, you don't want confusing. But and then another one by Eastern Star.
Yeah,
large release date for Eastern Star, and this is all, of course, for the next week. For
Tuesday, some variety too.
Tuesday the 28th, I think. Is that right? The 28th?
It sounds about right.
Or 29th. Because tomorrow's 28th. Yeah, 7 days.
Right.
So, A Journey Through Fairyland. Another of those from childhood for many. I did not see it, but it does have an interesting premise. I mean, you've got an artist who is not getting to do a lot of what he wants to do at his pace, and so he's whisked away to this fantastical world to the fairies that actually love his work. It's like musical artist, and it actually, from what little I've read about it, it has a lot of good music in it, a lot of beautiful art, but an animation style, again, very different from what many are used to. So take it or leave it. That's pretty much what I've got for that one.
Yeah, I don't know too much myself. I looked out and Right Stuff's description. And honestly, what came to me was Fantasia with an art style somewhat more reminiscent of Adventure Time. Sort of not quite that crazy, but you know what I mean. That's kind of my feeling on it. It's probably not the most visually arresting film in the world, but it could be wrong. I've only seen a couple stills, and it could be that it gets really nice. But they use apparently a lot of classical pieces, and so if you enjoyed Fantasia, it might be worth checking this out.
It might be.
See what happens. Yeah.
So, yeah, again, classic art style.
So it's my turn.
Yeah.
Sorry about the jump there. He's looking for something. So, next up, we have Pokemon. XYZ Volume 1. We were just talking about Viz releases. This is a Viz release. And it is a Volume 1.
Yeah.
I cannot claim to be expert on Pokemon. I know very little. I do know that this is an Ash and Pikachu-centric story arc. I know that much.
Gotta catch them all.
Exactly. One of these days I'll have to look more into Pokemon, and this will probably be an easily accessible release. I sincerely doubt that it's a series where you have to start at one particular point, but you might know more on that than I do. But there you go. Again, if you're a Pokemon fan, if you're a Pokemon collector, there's another piece coming out to give you something to look forward to.
Yeah, Pokemon's a lot like Gundam in the fact that there's a million different series related to it. There's the classic series that most people grew up with. I did not have a Game Boy when the Game Boy games were out. I did not even get really fully introduced to Pokemon until my mid-20s. So even then I still haven't beaten a Pokemon game yet. But still, I mean, it's 24 episodes of anime, and if you like Pokemon, I'm sure that would be good. I'm sure people can, talk to me and say, hey, it's great. This is where you should start. So just a shout out to people. If you want to, you can say, if we were to start out a Pokemon series, or if there was a starting point, where would be the best place to start this out? Don't bother with that. The cat gets mad when he's not getting attention, so...
They're hearing some Katsuyama. This is a new phrase I learned over the weekend.
All right. So, let's see. Another one I don't know much about, which is Endride Part 2. Better than Endride Part 1, I'm sure. Unless it's like Death Note Part 2, which was much worse than Death Note Part 1. But I doubt that they have the same relation. What I got from the description, and this is episodes 13 through 24, so I'll assume that's the end of the series, unless there's additional series. I mean, who knows? There could be Endride, Season 94, Episode 5643. For all I know, I never looked it up on ANN, so I couldn't tell you.
Endride 3, the beginning.
Exactly. But from what I get, there's some sort of modern world person whisked off to fantasy world fighting monster threat thing. That's what I got out of what I've read. Again, if anybody really likes the series, please comment, let me know more. I would be interested in that. I mean, is it worth watching? Is it worth studying to actually learn more about? I mean, I got a lot of these things. We got a lot of these titles to cover, so unless there's something like that particularly strikes one of our fancies, it's going to flash by us, unfortunately. So I don't know. Do you know a lot about Endride? I mean, you usually study up more on those types of animes that I don't usually.
Often, but I have to admit, this one. Very little. I mean, I don't know much about it. I know the name. I know of it. I know very little about it. And looking at Right Stuff's description of all the things I looked at, I mean, Pokemon left more of an impression, honestly. And I don't mean to be knocking on Pokemon. It's just, it just didn't leave an impression. So it's one that I might get to one of these days, but... again, if you're already collecting it, if you got part 1, you definitely got something to look forward to this week. But otherwise, I really can't say much more on that.
Okay. Well, so go for it.
So it's my turn, and another one that I know a little bit about, but this one...
I brought a prop.
He brought a prop. Here, let me use the prop here. This is a series called Ushio and Tora, and this was what? Is this like the OVA series?
I think so, because it's like 10 episodes.
Okay. This is... it's obviously a shonen fantasy series involving demons, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that there was like an OVA and then a series that followed, but in the new release collects both, right?
I think so. It's 39 episodes, which that's a lot.
And basically, and you may know more, you may not. I mean, you own part of it.
Yeah.
But basically, this dude, I think, like takes over a shrine, or his family's in a shrine, or something like that. And there's like this demon that's sealed in the shrine.
Yeah.
And he does something stupid, as often happens in these series. And bad stuff happens, and he has to go around fixing the bad stuff. That's my understanding of it. And it's one that I've been interested in for a while. It's a title that's been on my radar for a while. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. A full collection is more tempting now that I know I can get all of it. I won't be jumping on it, but maybe, this year, but more likely next year when it goes on sale and Right Stuf. And I can get the whole thing for $20 or so, I'll probably do it.
If only they would release part 2 of Glass Mask in that sense. It's just, it's sad when you get a piece of a series, and this piece has been out for a while. And now they're finally releasing the whole of it. What I got from the thing is it's sort of like a weird combination, sort of like Inuyasha mixed with Card Captors or something like that. Like that whole, you've released this enemy thing, and then you release this one demon who is here to help you do it, and all this stuff. And I was
thinking a little bit of Ghost Stories too, maybe.
Maybe like actiony, stuffy stuff. And I got it originally because of the cover art, and I was so used to seeing the cover art for so long that I eventually said, "Oh, this is cheap. I'll get this." And then I found out, "Oh crap! It's part of a bigger series. Oh crap! None of it's out." All right. Well, that's actually it for the anime, and now we're moving on to the regular releases.
The animation.
So, from one that was more on my side that you got to introduce to more that's probably on your side that I'm getting to introduce.
Yeah, this is one I actually have stuff to talk about.
And which is Batman and Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen this. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I know it got out in theaters really briefly.
Just came out. Well, technically, it hasn't come out yet.
Because I know there were some people.
Did it get a theater release?
Yep, it got like a one-day theater release on select ones. I think Richmond had a one-day release, but it was like very limited.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Certain things. I mean, I've heard about the infamous scene where Harley takes advantage of Nightwing. Almost reminds me of a rape scene, tell you the truth.
IMDb, there's a user comment that she goes all 50 Shades of Grey on Nightwing.
Yeah. So,
isn't that something?
And I've seen lots of reviews for it, but from what I've heard, it's basically a lot of harkening back to the old animated series from the 90s. And that's not a bad thing. I have heard that the soul of the film is not as there as it should be.
Yeah.
But that's all I've heard of it. I mean, I'm sure you've heard much more than I have. For you.
I've looked into it because, full disclosure, Harley Quinn is my favorite DC character. And Poison Ivy is my second favorite. And who doesn't love Batman except for one friend of ours? It's, and Nightwing's cool too, And this is an old school, it's the art style and everything harkens back to the old Batman the Animated Series, which is a huge part of our childhoods. They've got Kevin Conroy reprising his role as the best Batman yet. I think the guy that plays Nightwing is the original Dick Grayson from the series. I could be wrong. But this baffles me, and it apparently baffled every single user that I read. The part of Harley Quinn was created for the animated series.
Yeah.
And it was created in part because the producers, Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, I don't remember which one of them, had a friend, a soap actress named Arlene Sorkin, that they thought would be a great basis for this character. And so Miss Sorkin voiced the role and became the one that introduced the world to Harley Quinn. And for some reason, let's call it money, WB decided to go a different direction in this release and cast Big Bang Theory star Melissa Rauch.
Yeah.
And there's nothing about that says anything other than money grab. And to be honest, the whole idea of Batman and Nightwing press ganging Harley into a road trip just because she's Ivy's BFF, that kind of smacks of marketing too. And I love the idea, but apparently the execution did not go over well with the fans. So I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll still be awesome. I did watch the preview, but my biggest gripe from the preview is, for one, it's interesting they went with green-skinned Ivy, which I don't remember if they've done that in animation before. But it really looks like they really did harken back to the old Harley-Ivy dynamic where they are good friends, but they're more frenemies. And I really like the current comic version where they are best buds and sometimes lovers. They're such a fun duo. I'm not so sure. Not only that, Ivy is teamed with the Floronic Man. Really? DC has a bad track record for coming up with good names. This has to be one of the worst.
Poor man's Swamp Thing. They couldn't afford the royalties.
No, apparently Swamp Thing's in the movie.
Huh.
And apparently Booster Gold, of all people, shows up. But I have no idea how they factor into the plot. So it's interesting. I do have a hold on it through the library. I'm going to get it not too far into the future to watch it.
Yeah.
But at this point, I am very cautiously optimistic, but not holding my breath that it... I'm still hoping that DC will do Gotham City Sirens right. Is my open letter to DC. Please do Gotham City Sirens right.
Yep.
Hey, Carpy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
On a note...
Speaking of Gotham...
Actually, on a note from earlier, because I wrote it down and I forgot about it, was the thing I was thinking about, and maybe this is what got me mixed up when I was talking about Marmalade Boy earlier, is a series I was thinking about that I kept hearing it paired with is Golden Boy, which are two different series, possibly.
Yeah.
And Golden Boy is a definite ecchi. Have you seen Golden Boy?
That is the one that she likes, isn't it? Yeah. I haven't seen those. I haven't seen either one. No.
That one is a definite ecchi. But yes, go for it.
Okay. So like I said, speaking of Gotham, we have been pretty reliably watching Bruno Heller's series on TV. I allow myself one currently running TV show at a time, and Gotham is the current one. And yes, I know that in terms of fidelity to the comics, it jumped the shark by the end of the first season. When they assassinated Salvatore Maroni at the end of the first season, you knew that fidelity to the canon... yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Minor spoiler. Because we're up to season 3. So if you're collecting it, you've already seen that part. But basically, season 3 is the season that introduced Jervis Tetch. And he is nothing like what I expected them to go with that character. But he's a very interesting take on the character. Very interesting take. And also this season was very heavy into the Court of Owls and teased Ra's al Ghul, although I believe he never fully showed up this season, did he?
They put somebody that people thought might have been him, but then it turned out it wasn't him.
And thank God it wasn't, because he would have kind of ticked me off as Ra's. But they seem to do that a lot. They did that in the movies, too. They put in a false Ra's and then the real one. And I guess that's a theme. They didn't do that on Arrow, though, did they? They just kind of brought him in, didn't they?
I feel like they kind of just brought him in.
Yeah,
but they really did it differently with Arrow.
Right.
And I wonder, because Gotham really hasn't paralleled with any of those series.
Gotham is not part of the Arrowverse, so don't go in expecting that it is. There have been some slight Easter eggs, but the showrunners acknowledge that they're both DC products, but they're not technically the same universe. Yeah. And Gotham has its flaws. Ben McKenzie, his take on Gordon, he's not quite the Gordon we all know and love. On the other hand, I love Donald Logue's Harvey Bullock. He is great. And some of the other major and supporting characters have been pretty good so far. They did fine with Freeze. They did, even though I didn't like them positioning Cameron Monaghan as the Joker. Yeah, he was a fun character, and I love Barbara Keene as a crazy. I kind of hope she doesn't go too. I think she got shock treatment, and she's probably going to go back to being sane.
Yeah, well, we'll see next season. It's
but anyway, up. Yeah, it's a fun show. It's worth watching. Yeah. It veers toward camp, but in a way that's good because, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to move on to something that is definitely camp.
Bring it on.
Yeah, the Bring It On series. And, I thought that this series was dead, and I was unfortunately wrong.
That's my reaction.
As they've come out with Bring It On worldwide, #CheerSmack. I had to read that because I wanted to make sure I got that right for everybody. Yes, #CheerSmack. That's... Yeah, I've got it writing here like a global cheer showdown and a little face with a little depression mark on it. I guess that was my hope to say, "Don't you get there? Make him talk about it." And I don't know a lot about the Bring It On series, other than seeing clips of a couple of them. I just know that it's a lot of dance-off type stuff. And mostly cheer-based dance-off type stuff. And I guess if you really love that series, I'm sure it can't be any different from the other two.
Are there only two?
Yeah, there are two that I know of. I can't remember. I
sworn there were more.
I don't consider it a series that I am an expert on by any means.
Oh, right.
As far as I'm concerned, this could be the 45th in the series, and I wouldn't know. I remember two of them. I know
Sharknado
for
cheerleaders.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they should do a combined thing, and that way the Sharknado can come in and pull them all up, and that's all. That's the end of the season.
Now, I'll admit, using the phrase #CheerSmack automatically loses many points for a movie. But if that was the subtitle of a Sharknado movie, I could go for that. What's up?
Okay, I was just looking at the second.
Okay.
But yeah, that is...
Apologies to any Bring It On fans.
All 9 of our subscribers are just going, all right, unsubscribe. He said something bad about Bring It On. Everything else, he can badmouth Pokemon. He can be ignorant of what was that? The guy that we were talking about beforehand. From the Criterion guy. He can be ignorant. I'm obviously ignorant because I forgot him already. But Bring It On. No. That's the last straw. I gotta. Okay, gone. Okay. So, on to the next.
On to London's Finest.
You probably know much more about this than I do.
Actually, sadly, I looked it up and I've already forgotten what I saw.
It's
a recent film.
I got a little bit of a description.
It says Man in the Wrong Place.
Yep, there you go.
That doesn't tell me anything. I don't even remember who's in that. Let me look it up.
I think it's supposed to be some sort of almost comedic thing because there's a stoner guy supposedly in the wrong place at the wrong time with this guy or something like that.
Man, I feel bad because I know I looked it up.
I looked it up earlier today, but heavy day at work doesn't help for me to remember some of these.
We'll blame it on the eclipse. Actually, I can blame my heavy day on work at the eclipse.
He's trying to figure it out. It's like, what is this thing?
Yeah, at least trying to see like if there's someone in it. I remember. Like,
I still stand by mine. Like stoner caught in situation.
Yeah.
And there's probably some police stuff going on, and probably London. It's probably in London.
I'm pretty sure it's in Munich.
Yeah, that's true. It could be like...
oh, right. That's why I can't remember anything, because I couldn't recognize any of the actors.
Well, there you go.
Okay. Well, it has an IMDb rating of 4.6.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sterling.
And hour and a half. It stars a bunch of folks I've never heard of.
Oh.
Although Nia Naik is pretty cute. And then let's see here. A small-time drug dealer gets into big trouble when a corrupt East London cop tries to steal a consignment meant for Welsh Jamaican yardies.
Oh, so drug dealer
that probably tells you about what you need to know. So, obviously, that comes with a very high recommendation from the both of us.
Yep. You don't know what you're getting into, but there's at least somebody who might be stoned or related to people who are stoned.
And there will probably be some violence and definitely some drugs. And some,
London's involved.
Yes. Exactly.
All right, let's see here. So, Eric the Conqueror. Actually a fairly classic thing. Arrow Entertainment's releasing that. Again, I usually mark which ones Arrow is releasing because they, to me, are always about that classy stuff. Not always classy things, but they have classy sets. I mean, like I said, I've said this before. I mean, that Feast collection behind me, that is an Arrow release. It is... I'm sure you've heard of Eric the Conqueror. It's 1961, swashbuckling epic. That's how they bill it. And I cannot remember much in that regard. And what is your take on Eric the Conqueror? I mean, is that one of those that's on your must-have lists?
It's not one that I know very well at all. Basically, what you said already covers what I know about it.
All right. Got all the bases covered.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. There is a lot out this week, so I didn't really get a chance to do an in-depth look at all of them.
We were real informative this week for you.
Hey, we are in some of them. But, yeah, it does look pretty interesting.
Yep.
And if you like those old swashbuckling films, which I've seen some really good ones, if you like them, then definitely it's probably worth, like you said, it's going to be a nice-looking set. Definitely worth a look, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, and the next one, I looked up just enough, and you might actually know more about the originating series because I say it's a follow-up to that.
Yeah. The next one on here is The White Princess, which is a follow-up to White Queen. I actually know very little about it, but just looking it up, it's a short series, apparently 8 episodes. And it's based on a series by Philippa Gregory. And though I am not keenly familiar with the series, I do know from working in the library that it is a very popular series.
Yeah, White Queen,
these are very popular books. There definitely are some very ardent fans out there. And I am pretty sure that it's a high-rated IMDb list, 7.8 for this series. So that's usually a pretty good rating for a TV series.
Can't go wrong with IMDb.
Yeah, I know. So, it's probably, except for this user review starts with, I'd rather go blind.
So there you have it. Either really good very well recommended, or you'd rather go blind. It's one of those two. You'll have that as
right, but it's going to be, if I'm not much mistaken, a period drama.
Yeah.
Sort of royal intrigue and all that kind of fun stuff. And I want to say, I'm really probably I'm a bad library person here. I want to say it's the same author who did The Other Boleyn Girl, which of course was a period epic with a lot of royal intrigue. That was a pretty good movie. I liked it a lot.
Well, that one I've seen at least.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Speaking of historic epics, we have Black Sails Season 4. Mm-hmm. And much like many of its class, I have had it in my queue, but have yet to watch a single episode. I know it's about pirates, and I know it's really good by a lot of people who have told me you need to watch this. Mm-hmm. But like many of these popular shows, I have to pick a few, and unfortunately those few are the ones that went out. So, I'm sorry, Black Souls.
Black Souls.
Black Souls. Black Sails, or whatever.
The lesser-known version.
But, it is supposedly really good for those of you who are collecting it. I mean, Season 4 is out. That's good. So next week, you can grab yourself a copy of that. Continue your watching if you haven't been watching on the TV. If you're like me, you grab them on the DVD, and then you watch them that way. That way you binge it. You binge it old school. Yep. None of that streaming crap. Even though I was talking about streaming earlier.
Yep.
That's my take on it.
Well, that's a show that I know by name, and I'm very interested in seeing, but I haven't gotten around to it. I mean, like you were saying, there's only so many shows you can watch. And I know Black Sails is very popular, and it is a show that I've heard a fair bit about, but not a whole lot of specifics. It's been more generalities, like it's a good show, it's worth watching, But one day I'll get to it. I'm very interested in getting to it, but one day.
I watched The Fog, and that's about pirates. Yeah. Pirate ghosts, but pirates, yeah. So, you get the last one. At least you know what this one is, probably.
And the last one, fittingly enough, is The Originals. But actually, this is something that my brother would know a whole lot more than I do. I have seen bits and pieces of this one. And the show, it's actually a spin-off of The Vampire Diaries. And I know that show a little bit. But my brother got into it a lot. I walked through the room while he was watching it, sort of thing. From what I've seen, it's not bad. A lot of angst, a lot of drama, your typical vampire crap. But a lot of pretty people. The Originals, I think, focuses on some of the originals. It focuses on a group of really old vampires who, if I remember, I don't remember if they're key players in Vampire Diaries or more like incidental. It is a spin-off, so it may have been more, but I don't remember. But I do know that if you're really into the whole angsty vampire current thing, you probably will love this show.
All right.
And even if you're more casually into it, it's worth a look. I'll get to it one of these days. It just has not been a priority relative to all the other shows already in my collection. Yeah. But, yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty much sums it up for this week's worth of releases. And I hope you all continue to tune in to us the next time where we make our witty banter about things that we know very little about and those things that we know a lot about. And that way we make you think we know a little about everything.
And hopefully the balance will be a little more toward the latter next time. But, that's what happens. Every week is different.
Believe it or not, we both have a surprisingly good knowledge of TV and movies. It's just not so much this time around. But any case, I hope you enjoyed.
Blame it on the eclipse.
Yep, the eclipse's fault. I shouldn't have stared into the sun all day. But with that, please share, like, subscribe. Again, we get to that number 10. We're very close. We're at 9. So once we get to number 10, I'm going to do a library tour. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to that, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. So thank you very much, and see you next time.